Okay, thank you all. You obviously just heard Denise, but I wanted to add and flag to you the comments the Secretary General made in Malaysia earlier this morning. Um, in responding to a question about the reports indicating that the Rapid Support Forces had captured El Fasher, the Secretary General said this marked a terrible escalation in the conflict, stressing that it was high time for the international community to speak clearly to all countries interfering in the war and providing weapons to the warring parties, urging them to stop. The Secretary General noted that the problem is not only the fighting between the Army and the RSF, but also the growing external interference that undermines prospects for a ceasefire and a political solution. Amid these developments, the humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate, as you heard from Denise just now. Um, the Secretary General has mentioned, just wrapping up his program in Malaysia, where he took part in the ASEAN UN summit. In his remarks at the summit, the Secretary General condemned once again the bloodshed in Myanmar and urged all parties to halt the fighting, protect civilians, and allow unimpeded humanitarian access, and also to engage in an inclusive political process. The release of those arbitrarily detained, the Secretary General said, including the democratically elected leaders in Myanmar, is essential. The Secretary General told ASEAN leaders that under current conditions, any elections in Myanmar risks further exclusion and instability. Earlier in the day, the Secretary General held a press conference in which he reiterated his call for an immediate end to the violence in Myanmar and for a credible path back to civilian rule. Turning to climate, the Secretary General said the stakes are very high for Southeast Asia, where climbing temperatures, rising seas, and worsening storms threaten lives, they threaten livelihoods, and entire communities, if not countries. Next week, when leaders gather in Brazil for COP30, they must agree on a credible plan to close the gap to 1.5 degrees and mobilize $1.3 trillion annually in climate finance by 2035. That's for developing countries, he said. Also today, the Secretary General delivered remarks at an event to mark the 80th anniversary of this organization, organized by Malaysian authorities. All those remarks were shared with you. The Secretary General will be heading back to New York shortly. Also over the weekend, rather yesterday, we issued a statement in which the Secretary General welcomed the joint declaration between Cambodia and Thailand as a means to consolidate the July ceasefire. The Secretary General expressed his appreciation for the important role played by Malaysia as chair of ASEAN and the United States in facilitating this declaration. We're committed to supporting all efforts aimed at promoting peace, stability, and development in the region. And just for the record, and taking you back to Saturday when the Secretary General was in Hanoi and took part in a high-level event marking the opening for signature of the UN Convention Against Cybercrime. In his remarks, the Secretary General said the new convention is a powerful, legally binding instrument to strengthen our collective defenses against cybercrime, added that it is also a promise that fundamental human rights such as privacy, dignity, and safety must be protected both offline and online. Over the weekend, the convention gathered 72 signatories, and according to our colleagues in our legal department's treaty section, they tell us that the number is one of the most significant for a multilateral treaty deposited with the Secretary General in the last 10 years. As the Secretary General said during a press conference in Vietnam, we must turn signatures into action. And want to flag the situation along the blue line, which, as you know, lies between Israel and Lebanon. I can tell you that we are very concerned about the incident that occurred on Sunday in which an Israeli drone dropped a grenade in the vicinity of a UNIFIL patrol, and subsequently an Israeli tank fired a shot at the peacekeepers in Kafr Kila in the UNIFIL area of operations. Fortunately, no one was injured, and no damage was caused to the peacekeeping assets. This incident came after an earlier one in the same location where Israeli drone flew over a UNIFIL patrol in an aggressive manner. UNIFIL peacekeepers employed defensive countermeasures to neutralize the drone. Any action that may endanger the safety and security of peacekeepers are completely unacceptable and must cease immediately. Also to mention that our special coordinator for Lebanon, Janine Hennis-Plasschaert, began a visit to Israel today as part of her regular consultations with stakeholders who are key to the implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. During her visit, she's scheduled to meet with senior Israeli officials for discussions on recent developments, particularly those related to the resolution and the November 2024 cessation of hostilities arrangements, all with the overarching goal of advancing security and stability on both sides of the blue line. Earlier this month, the special coordinator also held meetings in Lebanon with senior officials, including President Aoun. They discussed the prevailing regional and domestic developments with a focus on Resolution 1701. Turning to Gaza, our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tell us that over the weekend, people continued to move across the Gaza Strip. Since the ceasefire, more than 470,000 movements of people have been recorded towards the north. Families are trying to return to their destroyed homes. Through many structures are unstable and unexploded ordnances pose a very grave risk. Our partners tell us that water, food, and essential services are still desperately needed. Meanwhile, aid continues to enter the Gaza Strip. Between Friday and Saturday, more than 300 truckloads were collected from the Palestinian side, mostly from Karim Shalom Abu Salam crossing. The aid in these trucks included thousands of pallets of wheat flour, supplies for hot meals, canned food, as well as rice. The supplies also included diapers and jerry cans, as well as hundreds of pallets of health supplies such as medical equipment and medicine. Tarp, tents, and winter clothes also entered the Gaza Strip. While we don't yet have a date on the cargo collected on Sunday, I can tell you that hygiene kits, shelters, supplies, and postpartum kits entered Gaza. Additionally, yesterday, our colleagues at the UN Office for Project Services distributed some 329,000 liters of diesel, and that was to support health, food security, telecommunications, and other critical humanitarian operations. As of Sunday, our partners are working with 170 community kitchens, delivered more than 1 million hot meals, mostly in Gaza, with 15 UN-supported bakeries producing tens of thousands of loaves of bread in Deir el-Balah and Khan Yunis in Gaza City. Community kitchens and shelters across hundreds of sites are distributing bread for free to those who need it. And over the weekend, our partners continue to work on reducing the risk to unexploded ordnance, reaching nearly 3,200 people in central and southern Gaza. This is increasingly important as people are on the move. Overall, since October 7th, 2023, humanitarians have recorded 150 explosive ordnance incidents, which led to casualties, including among children. For the West Bank, OCHA tells us that since the olive harvest season started on October 9th, more than 85 Israeli settler attacks on farmers and their land have reportedly disturbed harvesting. These incidents have resulted in the injury of more than 110 Palestinians and the vandalization of over 3,000 trees and saplings across 50 villages in the West Bank. Last week alone, 17 attacks were recorded in 14 towns and villages, mostly around in the Ramallah governorate. Also, I wanted to update you on the situation in Yemen with our staff in Sana'a. I can tell you that today, the de facto authorities arbitrarily detained one more of our UN colleagues. This follows the detention of 5 of our co-workers in recent days, including 2 female colleagues, bringing the total number of detainees by the Houthis to at least 59. And as you know, some of them have been held for years. We reiterate our strong condemnation of their continued arbitrary detention by the Houthis. And a related development, Houthi security members entered several UN offices in Sana'a on Sunday and over the past few days, confiscating IT and communications equipment as well as other assets. We continue to call for the immediate and unconditional release of all personnel from the UN, from NGOs, civil society, and diplomatic missions. They must be respected and protected in accordance with applicable international law. And from Ukraine, our humanitarian colleagues on the ground are telling us that attacks over the weekend and this morning led to dozens of civilian casualties and further damage to homes and energy infrastructure. Children are among the injured. The most impacted regions are Dnipro, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Kherson, Kyiv, Sumy, and Zaporizhzhia. Meanwhile, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that evacuations of civilians continue from frontline communities in the Donetsk region. Between October 24th and 26th, more than 900 people were evacuated. The Ukrainian Humanitarian Fund continues to support local and national NGOs in facilitating safe evacuation and rehabilitating collective centers ahead of the oncoming winter. Since May, the fund has released $13 million for Kharkiv to assist people living near the front lines whose lives are impacted by airstrikes. The allocation, implemented by 15 partners, nearly 60% of whom are local NGOs, reached 76,000 residents. Half of those are women and girls. They were assisted through cash assistance as well as shelter, health, water, sanitation, and hygiene. Our partners also provide assistance on the prevention of gender-based violence. And as you know, there is a horrific hurricane south of the United States hitting the Caribbean. Hurricane Melissa has reached Category 5, bringing destructive winds and dangerous storm surge and catastrophic rainfall across the region. The regional office for OCHA is coordinating closely with resident coordinators and UN country teams, as well as the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agencies and emergency authorities on readiness and response. OCHA is deploying staff to Cuba and Jamaica this week as conditions allow to reinforce preparation and coordination efforts across the region. In Jamaica, the UN team, led by our resident coordinator, Dennis Zulu, is supporting national preparedness and response effort, of course in close coordination with the government. WFP in Jamaica is providing logistics support, including generators, while UNICEF has pre-positioned water and sanitation supplies, as well as materials for child protection. The Pan American Health Organization is reinforcing health emergency operations, while International Organizations for Migration is preparing shelter support. For their part, the UN Development Program, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and UN Population Fund are mobilizing for early recovery and protection. And in Haiti, a country that is already suffering from many different issues, OCHA and its partners are supporting authorities ahead of further impact. This includes pre-positioning relief supplies, including medical and nutrition supplies, as well as supporting with cash assistance, early warning messaging, and community outreach. Authorities report that priority needs include emergency shelter, essential household items, hygiene and cleaning kits, safe water, and additional logistics support to reach isolated areas. And finally, in Cuba, where the hurricane is anticipated to hit tomorrow night, the Anticipatory Action Framework was fully activated yesterday with a $4 million allocation released from the UN Central Emergency Fund. This allows our partners to pre-position food and essential supplies, including rice, grains, hygiene kits, fuel vouchers, and portable water treatment plants. That's mostly in the eastern provinces of Cuba. OCHA continues to support the resident coordinator and the UN country team to prepare alongside the authorities. A couple of things I want to flag. One, a UN Women report called At Risk and Underfunded, which warns that sweeping aid cuts are jeopardizing the organizations essential to ending violence against women and girls. Based on a global survey of 428 women's rights and civil society groups, it finds that over a third have suspended or shut down their programs, while more than 40% have scaled back critical services, including shelter, legal aid, and health care. With an estimated 736 million women experiencing physical and sexual violence, UN Women calls on governments and donors to protect and expand funding and prevent backsliding. And this afternoon at 6 p.m., you're all invited to be in the visitors lobby to mark the 25th anniversary of the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda. There'll be an exhibit. Our colleague Melissa Fleming, Undersecretary General for Global Communications, will be joined by the head of the peace operations, Jean-Pierre, Undersecretary General Jean-Pierre Lacroix, and other senior officials. They will present the photo exhibit Through Her Lens, Women Rising for Peace. This exhibit comes courtesy of our Peace and Security Pillar, UN Women, and the ELSI Initiative Fund. The event will also include a creative performance by Enso Seime Dora, a Congolese poet and photographer whose work focuses on the rights of gender equality in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, as well as a guided tour of the exhibit. Please contact our peacekeeping colleagues for more information. Today is World Audiovisual Heritage Day. Under a theme, A Window into the World, this year's observance celebrates how film, sound, and video connects cultures, histories, and generation, and reminds us that audiovisual archives preserved our shared memory, reflecting our diversity, and keeps our collective stories alive for future generations. Speaking of the future, 1 second. Busy day tomorrow. 11 o'clock, briefing by Mariana Katsarova, UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Russian Federation, following her presentation of her report to the General Assembly's third committee. At 1 p.m., there will be a hybrid briefing by the Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel, and that follows their presentation to the third committee. Lastly, at 2 p.m., there will be a hybrid briefing by Francesca Albanese, Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. That will also be following her presentation to the third committee. I've spoken enough. Pam.
Thanks, Steph. A big picture question, then a narrow one. Given what you talked about, the attacks on the weekend, during the weekend on civilians in Ukraine, including a kindergarten, and what you may have seen at the ASEAN meeting, the lack of any, or the stalling of current peace proposals for Ukraine. Did you get any sense that any country is taking the lead? Did you or the SG in ASEAN?
No, I have no development to report.
Okay, and just on an UN question, this morning the 42nd Street was closed and security said it was lack of personnel. How bad are these cuts in terms of security?
No, this is, I mean, it's not that
And
they were
how
cut.
long will
Sorry,
it last?
Today is a staffing issue, so it's just, it's
an
a staffing
anomaly.
issue.
Okay,
We have a
thanks.
lot of staff also traveling to various conferences.
Thank you.
Greg. And then Abdelhamid.
On the blue line, I wonder if you could tell us about any contacts between UNIFIL commanders and UN officials on the Israeli side, if there's been any, and what steps have been taken to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, I mean,
there.
we've obviously, our colleagues at UNIFIL are in touch with the IDF to protest vehemently what has happened. It's not the first time that we feel we've been targeted in different ways by the IDF, whether it's things like pointing lasers or warning shots. It's very, very dangerous. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Steph. First, Francesca Albanese, has she been denied a visa to enter?
I mean, she's briefing virtually. I think you'd have to ask.
Why? That's my question.
I mean, you need to ask her. I can't speak for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
My second question. An Israeli drone killed 2 Palestinians in the town of Abasan in Gaza, and a number of people were injured. Are you aware of this?
I personally had not seen that report, but we will look into it.
And also there are 5 orders issued by the Israeli army to confiscate 73 dunams in Al-Bira and Ramallah under the pretext that security necessities. So are you aware of also these developments?
Not this particular incident, but I think we've been very vocal in speaking out against the confiscation of Palestinian land by Israeli security forces. Okay, Islam.
Thank you, Stéphane. On Sudan again, Sudanese doctor network, according to the Sudanese doctor network and also some NGOs over there, past a few days, like almost 50 civilians were killed. My question is, does UN have any reliable sources? What is the number that past 2 years, civilians number that, people
Over
killed
the past
there?
2 years that have been killed?
Yes.
I don't have those numbers top of my head. We will ask our humanitarian colleagues. Namo.
Thank you, Stéphane. Yesterday, I don't know if you saw the reports in Turkey that PKK started withdrawing its fighters in what's considered the most significant practical step toward ending this conflict. Does the Secretary General have any comment on this?
Yes, I mean, the Secretary General is obviously following very closely the progress made regarding the Kurdistan Workers' Party and its decision to dissolve, disarm, and we take note of the announcement by the PKK that it's withdrawing its forces from Turkey to Iraq. The decision, if implemented, would represent another important step towards the peaceful resolution of this long-standing conflict. Secretary General encourages all concerned to continue acting in good faith towards implementation. Yes, Prosper.
Thank you very much. I want to know, the UN has appointed a committee that will be following up about human rights situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. So, can we say that it is a beginning of holding accountable all warring parties or all stakeholders that are being accused of perpetrating atrocities in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo? That's my first question.
It is part of an ongoing process of documenting human rights violations. As you know, our peacekeeping colleague and their human rights cell have been doing that a lot, consistently throughout the years. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has also been doing that. We are not short of facts about human rights abuses in the Eastern DRC, and we've been calling them out repeatedly in as transparent way as possible. There will need to be accountability for all of those who have perpetrated crimes in the DRC. We've seen already some movement, but sadly, and it's unfortunately a fact, that accountability takes a long time, but accountability there will need to be. Your next question, sir. Did you have another question?
And another question, on 30 October in Paris, Emmanuel Macron will host a conference aiming to bring about a peace and prosperity within Great Lakes region. Especially, it will be more focused on situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. What is you, as UN, think about that conference really? Thank you so much.
I will see if we have any representatives at that conference, and I will let you know. Okay. Sorry, Abdelhamid?
Thank you. The Prime Minister of Israel said that the security of Gaza will remain in the hands of Israel. That's on one hand. And he said also that Israel has to approve who will be part of the stabilization force in Gaza. Any thoughts on that?
The issues, the negotiations around the stabilization force is not one that includes the UN at this point. We understand, I think we read the same reports that you do, that there may very well be a resolution in front of the Security Council. So that's what I have to say at this point. Okay, thank you all. Have a great day, a happy Monday. Why not, right? If that's such a thing.